saving our time all together, which is related with the pigmentation and also beyond pigmentation for the carotenoids. Today, we will have the opportunity to bridge science and the real-world applications for the carotenoids, and we will be speaking about what are the different functions of carotenoids beyond pigmentation, such as antioxidant immunity effect, oxidative balance, and lipid metabolism. Some practical approaches regarding to the layer and the breeder nutritions. So we will also have a view on differences of xanthophyll content of the corn and how it affects our nutrition and pigmentation strategies. So without further ado, let me introduce my colleagues to you. In the science part, we have principal scientist Dr. Murtala Umar Faruk, and on the application part, we have strategic product manager and precision nutrition consultant Dr. Takehito Hayakawa. So without further ado, let's start our sessions. And one note before we start, please post your questions during the sessions, and all the questions will be answered at the end of the webinar. And Murtala, floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Emra, and greetings to all of you from my side. I'm really glad to share this knowledge with you together with Dr. Takehiko Hayakawa. And we will try in the next hour to scratch the surface of understanding of carotenoids beyond just the pigmentation. I'm saying here the surface of understanding because there has been a vast amount of knowledge that has been generated, which is related to the use of carotenoids in animal nutrition. So I will try in a very short note to look into carotenoids, some of the affinities or the differences between the species. I will also look very on a high level on the factors that are affecting their utilization. But most importantly, I will close with what we see as the future for carotenoids positioning in the animal nutrition space. So carotenoids, as you know, they are very common molecules in nature, and it's a family of around 600 to 800 molecules. When I started some 20 years back, we have been discussing about 600, but within the literature as we see today, it goes even above about 800 molecules. They were discovered very long time ago, and that is one of the reasons why we see a lot of information, a lot of scientific knowledge about carotenoids that is existing. They are basically responsible for pigmentation in fruits, vegetables, and flowers, but also they are responsible for the pigmentation in animal products. But beyond the pigmentation, they also play a very important role as antioxidants. They increase production, but also reproductive functions. Carotenoids are naturally synthesized, and by the way, nature is the largest producer of carotenoids in the world because it is estimated of around 100 million tons of carotenoids per year, which is equivalent to about 3 tons of carotenoids that is produced generally by bacteria, algae, fungi, as well as in plants. This is one of the bases of carotenoids that made it very interesting for pigmentation. If we look into the spectrum of absorption or the wavelength for the different carotenoids, so we do have the carotenoids that goes in the visible wavelength from 400 to about 480. So moving from the yellow spectrum down into the red spectrum, and we find carotenoids such as lutein, apoester, and zeaxanthin on the yellow space, and the red space there we see from canthaxanthin down up to astaxanthin. This basis or these properties of carotenoids per se is what made really their basis for pigmentation. But beyond that pigmentation, we see also that carotenoid has been reported to modulate immune system by influencing cytokine production, and therefore regulating inflammatory responses. Apologies for that. They also enhance natural killer cell activity as well as lymphocyte proliferation, which improve disease resistance. In terms of antioxidant protection, vast majority of the knowledge that has been published is by their ability to neutralize reactive oxygen species. They are very well known, especially the beta carotene, to be provitamin A carotenoid, which is converted into retinol, therefore supporting vision, but also epithelial integrity, as well as immune function. Reproductive and developmental support by protecting the gamete as well as embryo from oxidative damage, but also plays a very important role in gene regulation as well as cellular signaling. Towards the end of this presentation, we will go much into the detail about pigmentation, moving more into precision nutrition. In humans, carotenoids play a very important role in the growth, metabolism, as well as immune activities of the human body. So as you can see, a lot of different age-related macular degeneration, cataracts, so in terms of the eye health, but also astaxanthin playing a very important role in blood clotting or immunity, but also even up to anti-cancer, osteoporosis, cardiovascular diseases, as well as diabetes. Now, if we look into the species affinities of carotenoids, first, we need to keep in mind that carotenoids cannot be synthesized by the body, by the body of the mammals, and they must be therefore obtained through the feed. And once they are consumed by the animals, they first go via emulsification. They're moving into solubilization with the action of lipase, and they diffuse towards the unsteady water layer where they are incorporated into portomicrons before they are finally released into the circulation system. When we look into their absorption between the different species, and so this is in mammals, a study where they have looked into the uptake of carotenoids using the CARCO2 cells. So those are the human intestinal epithelial cell model. And they reported the log POW, which actually indicates the affinity of a molecule to be absorbed. And if we look to the higher the log POW is, then the higher the affinity is. And in mammals, we see that the highest affinity turns out to be with the beta carotene, and the lowest affinity seems to be with astaxanthin. Canthaxanthin, zeaxanthin, and lutein are in between the two. So in fish, we see that the main carotenoids for salmons is actually the astaxanthin, which tends also, as you saw in the previous slide, was the lowest for the mammals, but this is the highest affinity carotenoid for salmon. And as we can see, different salmon species, the vast majority of carotenoids that is deposited is astaxanthin, and it has a lot of reported functions where it plays a role in reproduction as well as in juvenile health. It is also a precursor for vitamin A, therefore playing a very important antioxidant against oxidative stress as well as membrane protection. In the ruminants, beta carotene is the main carotenoid. This is a study where they have looked into different carotenoids from beta carotene, canthaxanthin, alpha carotene, lutein, as well as lycopene. And based on the data, it seems that the relative absorption was highest with the beta carotene, having as well higher peak time, but also slow clearances. And it is known in ruminants to play a very important role in reproduction, where it has an action on the follicular phase, but also during the luteal phase, where it increases the embryo development, progesterone production, therefore resulting to less early embryo mortality and improving the pregnancy rate. In poultry, the model used is usually the deposition in the egg yolk, and we see that there is a differences in terms of deposition of the different carotenoids. So at the top here we have the yellow carotenoids, apoester, carotenoid zeaxanthin, as well as lutein, and we see that apoester tends to be the highest affinity in poultry, which tends to be at the middle affinity in mammals, as you have seen in the previous slide. Beta carotene, which was the highest affinity in mammals, was actually the lowest affinity in terms of deposition in the egg yolk. In terms of the red carotenoids, down here on the slide, we see that canthaxanthin tends to have the highest deposition, so highest affinity in poultry compared to citrana, astaxanthin, or even capsaicin. So beyond the pigmentation in poultry, I will take some few minutes here to look into. I will take some few minutes here to look into the function reported endpoint in terms of production in poultry. Here is a study where we have looked into the level of the plasma as well as the feed conversion ratio here in broilers. And we can see that within the control level, where animals were fed with corn, soybean meal type of diet for about 42 days, the level of the plasma in the control was significantly lower compared to when canthaxanthin, apoester, or lutein were fed. Lutein tends to provide a very high level of circulating blood levels of carotenoids. But when we look into the feed conversion ratio, here represented in blue, we see that the canthaxanthin as well as the apoester provided a more improved feed conversion ratio compared to lutein or compared to the control. In laying hens, this is a study that we published in the previous years where we have looked into a meta-analysis of 34 different trials that were conducted over the years with different age of laying hens moving from 21 up to 65 weeks. And we see that the presence of canthaxanthin has had an improvement in terms of the yolk weight, the egg mass, feed conversion ratio, the egg laying rate, as well as the FCR. And one of the findings that we found in here was that the level of the weight of the egg yolk was the highest impacted in terms of the in the presence of canthaxanthin, which also suggests a direct impact on the gamete as well as the reproduction. If we look into the reproduction part, this is a study where they looked into the breeder hen performance. So here with the control treatment and looking into the storage days as well as the incubation days of fertilized eggs. And we see that the gray bars here, which are the controls, had higher T bars, which are an indicator of oxidation, and a lower oxidation happening over the range of 18 days, 18 days of storage of these eggs. In terms of the incubation days, we also see that the presence of canthaxanthin has reduced the level of oxidation. So I will look very quickly now into the factors that are affecting the use of carotenoids in general, and these factors could be classified into either feed management, farm management, or health management. I will focus on the feed management, and in the presentation of Taki, we will also see about the farm management as well as the health management. If we look into the feed management, we see that the quality of the raw material that is used in the feed has a very important bearing, because this defines the basis level for the carotenoid content, and this provides what will be included in terms of supplementation for the carotenoid to reach the target uh, pigmentation, or to reach the target secondary functions of the carotenoids. The type of the carotenoid has a very important bearing, as well as we have seen that the carotenoid has different uh, color, and as well as different pigmentation, or different functions in terms of their secondary functions of antioxidation. Its ability to be mixed in the feed, but also the feed form, the storage condition, and very importantly, the level of the oil in feed. As you could remember in the previous slide, that the absorption of the carotenoids is very much related to the level of fat in the diet. Digestion per se is not a limitation in terms of the absorption of carotenoids. So this is a study that we have conducted in the previous years, where we are trying to understand the apparent fecal digestibility of carotenoids. So how much of carotenoid is found in the feces relative to what has been fed to the animals. In broiler chickens, we see that apoester had about 91% digestibility, whereas cantizantin has 85% digestibility. But in terms of laying hen, the relative numbers are quite slightly higher, with apoester being about 95% of digestibility, and cantizantin with about 93% digestibility. The relative differences between the two species also here indicate the affinity that the animals do have with carotenoids, knowing that with the laying hens, they have a much more higher affinity to carotenoids, in the sense that the carotenoid get into the target organs as quickly as 24 hours after feeding, compared to what we see in broilers that could take about 72 to 96 hours. And in general, the carotenoid intake being either digested, so the undigested forms are directly excreted in an unchanged form, and the digested part of the carotenoid, so which is about the 95% here, goes into the liver, where it is metabolized, and that metabolized part is what goes into the different secondary functions in terms of antioxidant capacity, or in terms of immunity, or in terms of reproductive performances. The carotenoids that we see in the eggs, for instance, or in the skin of the broilers, are those that are actually unchanged carotenoids that are deposited into the tissue. Another important factor that we wanted to touch here is the uh, uh, feed ingredient quality. And the most important here is the corn, because corn is the ingredient that is containing the lutein as well as the zeaxanthin that will determine the level of carotenoids that you will need to supplement to reach your production target. And here is a study where we look into different levels of corn, different types of corn from different origins. And as you can see, we can have up to about 7 milligrams of total carotenoid differences depending on the origin of the corn. It is very important here to keep in mind that the 7 milligram of level of lutein and zeaxanthin is something that could translate into either higher or lower level of supplementation. It also here means that understanding the level of your xanthophyll in the corn is key for a more precise nutrition in terms of carotenoids that will allow you to reach your target level of pigmentation, but also in terms of other secondary functions. In the future, so generally within the animal nutrition, there has been a lot of uh, uh, improvement and evolvement that has existed. Now we are moving more from static nutrition, where we are looking into more dynamic kind of condition responsive use uh, uh, of either ingredients or even of products. And this leads to one dose fits all is no longer the case. So we are looking into the right nutrient, the right animal, as well as the right time that those will be fed. As for the pigmentation, we are moving more into out of the pigmentation endpoints, but looking more into functional endpoints. And as you have seen previously, in terms of the fertility, immunity, but also sustainability. So why carotenoids really matter in this is because of their ability to support oxidative balance, their ability to improve immunity, but also reproductive performances. We have seen that they act as functional micronutrients under stress, especially during heat stress or during negative energy balance in terms of diseases, but also in terms of the phase transition. The improvement in the performance of handheld devices is also bringing a deeper understanding of carotenoids at farm levels. In the previous times, we used to have to measure carotenoids out of HPLC devices. And today we are having handheld devices that could not only measure the level of the carotenoid that is present in the plasma, but they could also be able to start detecting to some extent the type of the carotenoid that is present. And as we have seen previously, not only the level of the carotenoid that has its importance, but the type of the carotenoid that is present in the plasma circulating is as much of important. We are having in the era of AI today, we're having quite a lot of machine learning models where circulating blood of carotenoids is used for early detection of different issues, for instance, coccidiosis, locomotion, as well as enteritis, among others. So as an end one here, carotenoids are going more beyond the pigmentation because they are also an integral part of precision nutrition, which actually provides them with the space of being functional bioactive, but with more measurable biological impact. With this, I will hand over back to you, Emra. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Murtala. Indeed, very good and detailed presentation and helping us to understand the science behind the carotenoids. And a couple of takeaways from myself. And carotenoids and their roles are different in different species. That's obvious. So you have shown it in a good way. And carotenoids works beyond the pigmentation. There are some other things to focus and get benefit out of it. It's also a very important point for us. And the last point, but not least, the factors affecting the carotenoids utilization. It's not straightforward. There are a lot of details behind. And Murtala, thanks for showing us the feature of the nutrition. The feature is definitely with the adaptation to the changes. And I believe that this dynamic pigmentation approach strategies will help us to adapt to the changes. Thank you so much again.
Thank
And
you.
with that, yeah, by the way, we are receiving a lot of questions. Please don't forget to post your questions They will be answered at the end of the session. And now it's going to be a good connection to the next part, which is related with the applications of the carotenoids. Then I will leave the floor to Dr. Take.
Thank you, Emra, for the introduction. Let me share my screen. Marutara, can you stop the sharing? Thank you. Can you see my screen, Emra?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Today, I'll be talking about the carotenoid application for the laying hens based on the science, the story from the Dr. Murutara. So first, I think that many people believe the aqueous color is simply controlled by the carotenoids in the feed. That's true, but that is not the full story. Aqueous color is not decided by the carotenoids alone. For example, even if you feed the same level of the carotenoids, the final yolk color can be very different. This is because it depends on how well carotenoids are digested and then absorbed, and also the health conditions of the birds. So feed intake stability is also important. And then recently the factors like the toxins and then heat stress are becoming more critical. So that this is not just the feed issue. It's a combination of the feed management, farm management, and also the health management. Only when all the three are aligned, you can achieve a stable and the bright yolk. In the short, the optimal carotenoids together with the total management are the key to the consistent yolk color. So you may have seen the oxidant ranking like this. However, what is important to understand is these ranking are not fixed. They vary depending on the evaluation method used. For example, in one study, astaxanthin is ranked as the strongest antioxidant. In another study, the canthaxanthin comes out on top. And in yet another, the completely different carotenoid shows the highest activity. So why does this happen? Because of each evaluation measures different mechanisms, such as the radical scavengers and also the lipid oxidation or the different substrates. So the results depend heavily on the experimental conditions. That is why we say the different evaluation produce the different winners. In the practice, what matters more is how these compounds behave in the laying hens, including the absorption, the stability, and also the deposition. So rather than focusing only on lab ranking, we need to focus on the biological performance. So what does mean for the laying hens? So when we think about which carotenoids are the more effective for the laying hens, especially in terms of the affinity and antioxidant function, I'd like you to recall the comparison that Dr. Murtha already showed earlier on the carotenoid transfer efficacy. So when you look at this slide from the effectiveness point of view for the laying hens, now that you understand the canthaxanthin is a better option among those carotenoids. And I'd like to briefly touch on the functions of the carotenoids beyond the pigmentation. Carotenoid cannot be synthesized by the hens, also other humans. So their supply fully depends on the feed. At the same time, under the certain conditions, it has been reported antioxidant is metabolically linked to the pathways of the beta carotene and the vitamin A. So this becomes especially important when vitamin A in the feed is limited. As shown on the left side, there is suggested the metabolic relationship between the antioxidant, beta carotene, and vitamin A. And also on the right side, the data shows that under the vitamin A deficient conditions, the increasing the antioxidant supplementation tends to increase the vitamin A level in the liver. So what does this mean in the practice? Under the vitamin A deficiency, the antioxidant may help support the vitamin A status. However, I want to be very clear here. This is not the primary role of the antioxidant. Its main function are the pigmentation and also the antioxidant activity. But depending on the conditions, it may also play a role in the nutritional support. Here, I'd like to share what's happening after the cooking the eggs. In the reality, in many countries, the people don't eat raw egg. They mostly cook them. So how the eggs looks like after the processing, and then whether it still looks appealing is also important purchasing the criteria. So the question is, do all carotenoids behave the same after the cooking? The answer is no. In this study, conducted in Japan some years ago, and two types of the feed were compared. A group is the chlorophyll, the antioxidant. The B group is the paprika extracted. So if you look at the carotenoid level in the feed, the B actually contains more the carotenoids. And then in the raw eggs, the yolk color looks almost same. However, once you cook eggs, the situation changes. So after the boiling for the 12 minutes, the eggs from the A group maintain the stronger yolk color, while eggs from B group really becomes a paler. What this tells us is it is not just about how much carotenoids is in the feed. Please recall the earlier slide on the carotenoid transfer efficiency. Which carotenoid you use really matters, even if the carotenoids the higher level in the yolk is low. The color will fade more easily. So the key is how much total carotenoid that you can increase in the yolk. That is what determines the yolk color after the cooking. So this slide, I'd like to show how we translate the carotenoid content in the comb, which Murtala explained earlier, into the practical feed formulation. Even if you use the same inclusion rate of the comb, the carotenoid can vary depending on the raw material quality. On the left side, this is the case with the high quality comb with a higher carotenoid content. In this case, the target like the yolk one score 11, can be achieved without adding extra yellow carotenoid. On the other hand, on the right side, you will see the lower quality form. The carotenoid level is naturally lower. The difference is actually less than only the 1 ppm. But to achieve the same yolk color, you will need the additional yellow carotenoids. So the point is that to understand the carotenoid contribution from the raw materials and then reflect that into your formulation design. By doing this, you can achieve the stable yolk color. From here, let's look at how carotenoids affect the egg quality during the storage. This slide shows eggs stored at room temperature, day 3, day 15, and day 30. And at the top is a control group, just a corn soy diet. By the 15, the yolk already cracks and then spread. Next, in the middle, this is the case with the extracted carotenoids. You can see some improvement, but day 30, the yolk structure is partially broken down. Now look at the bottom. This is with the chlorophyll. Even the day 30, the yolk is still intact and well maintained. So the presence and the type of the carotenoids that can influence the oxidative stability and then strength of the yolk membrane. As a result, this can lead to better egg quality, longer shelf life, and improve the consumer perception. Then let's look at this from the more scientific perspective. This data show the yolk membrane strength. In other words, how much the force is needed to break the yolk. If you look at the graph on the left here, the eggs from the hens fed contact xanthine show the significant higher breaking the strength compared to the control group. This means the yolk membrane is stronger. And then this is very important because the yolk membrane strength is a key indicator of the egg freshness. The stronger yolk membrane, the less likely yolk is to collapse, and the easier it is to separate from the albumin. So what this suggests is the carotenoid, especially contact xanthine, may help maintain the structure of the yolk membrane. As a result, this can improve the freshness, the handling, also the processing, the performance. So now let's move from the measurement to the practical application. As I explained earlier, the yolk membrane strength is a very useful indicator of the egg freshness. However, there is a challenge. Measuring the yolk membrane strength requires a special method and then also the equipment like the texture analyzer. And then it is not something that you can easily do on the site. So the question is that can we evaluate this more easily? This is where the yolk index comes in. The yolk index is defined as the ratio of the yolk height to the yolk diameter, and then also it can be measured quickly and easily. No special equipment is required. If you look at the data on the left, you can see the strong positive correlation between the yolk index and the yolk membrane strength. In other words, the stronger membrane, the higher yolk index. So that we can say the yolk index can be used as a practical proxy for the yolk membrane strength. And then especially under the room temperature conditions, yolk index may actually be a more the practical and then the suitable the indicator than the how unit, which can be affected by the condition of the thick albumin. So we evaluated how yolk index change over the time under the different storage temperatures. As the expected, the yolk index decline as the storage time increase, but more importantly, the rate of the decline is strongly influenced by the temperature. At a low temperature, the yolk index remains relatively high for the longer period. At a higher temperature, it drops much faster. Based on this, we can classify egg freshness into the practical categories. When yolk index over the 0.38, we consider the eggs as extra fresh, suitable even for the low consumption. Between the 0.28 and 0.38, suitable for the general use, and also the below 0.28, approaching for the processed food. So in practice, yolk index provides a simple and then reliable way to assess the egg freshness under the real storage conditions. So further, we have discussed the yolk membrane strength, the freshness, and then the role of the carotenoids. But actually, these effects can be demonstrated in the very simple way. This is an example from our customer in the South Korea using the very simple test with the toothpicks. At the beginning, the difference between the two eggs does not look very large. However, as you increase the number of the toothpicks, the difference between very clear. In the regular egg, the yolk quickly breaks and then spreads. On the other hand, the blended egg can maintain its shape even under the more pressure. So what does this show? It shows the stronger the yolk membrane, the better it can maintain its structure over the time, and then under the external force. And then this is directly linked to the carotenoid nutrition. So this is important. And then also the point is that this kind of demonstration is very easy for the consumers to understand about egg quality. And then it can be used as a powerful way to differentiate the product differentiation. And this is the question that sometimes we receive from the customers. What is the difference between the chlorophyll, the carotenoids, and other carotenoid products? To answer that, let's start with the real commercial example with this slide. In this trial, we compare the two products with the same specification. Both are the 10% the carotenoid products with the same inclusion levels of the apoester and canthaxanthin. So on the paper, they looked identical. However, we looked the result, the difference becomes clear. The chlorophyll showed a significant higher the yolk score, and then also the higher the beta carotene, the equivalent levels. So this indicates the better deposition into the yolk, and then this is also reflected visually. You can see the stronger and more the consistent the yolk color. So this means that even with the same specification of the carotenoids, the product quality makes a difference. The factors such as the formulation, the stability, and also the bioavailability that affect how effectively the carotenoids are utilized in the laying hens. So I will explain much more the detail about that, why these the difference occur. We are comparing the different 10% contact products. On the paper, they are all have the same specification. However, in the reality, they have the totally different. What you see here is on the in vitro filter paper test. This is used as a simple method to visualize the dispersion. The chlorophyll shows a very uniform and then even the distribution, while the compatible product show the uneven spreading. The difference is directly related to the particle size and then formulation. If you look at the particle size distribution below, the chlorophyll has a much finer and more uniform profile. So this leads to the better and more consistent absorption, and then as a result, even the same equilibrium level, you get the different yolk color outcomes. That is why not all the carotenoid products are equal. So to summarize what we discussed today, the yolk color is not determined by the carotenoids alone. It's a result of the multiple factors, include the raw materials, absorption, and also the health. At the same time, the carotenoids do much more than the pigmentation. They play a role, the antioxidant protection, and under the certain conditions, they may also support the vitamin-related functions. We also saw that the type and quality of the carotenoid matter, they can influence not only just the yolk pigmentation, but also the egg quality, membrane integrity, and also the freshness during the storage. And then importantly, not all the products perform the same. Formulation technology makes a real difference. Finally, this is not only about the science. When these differences become visible, they translate into the value. Better product quality, the stronger branding, and improve the consumer perception. So the key takeaway is the carotenoids are not just for the color, for the yolk. The right carotenoid solution can create a value across the biology, the quality, and then business. So thank you for the attention.
Thank you so much, Take. It's very practical and real-world examples. Thank you so much for your presentation. And you phrase it very in a perfect way. Your color is the result of multiple factors. It's not only one thing or the content of the feed. And bright color reflects healthy hands and smart nutrition, which is also a good approach in here. And the third and the other important point is the better carotenoids improve egg quality and freshness. Means all carotenoids are not the same. Thanks again one more time. And we have a lot of questions coming in. I will try to bring some of those to you according to our time. So the first question is, what does the low deposition of beta-carotene or carotenoids mean for pigmentation efficacy in egg yolk? I think it's the question for Murtala.
Oh, sure, Emra. So I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we hear you.
Yeah. So the beta carotene, it's not mainly deposited in poultry. It is actually metabolized. So there are three reasons that we can answer this question. One is that it is not deposited. It also has a very lower deposition efficiency compared to other xanthophylls like lutein, zeaxanthin, or even cantor. But also, the chemical structure of beta carotene is what is limiting its pigmentation efficiency. So here to remember that beta carotene is a non-oxygenated hydrocarbon carotene, whereas xanthophylls, they contain oxygen atoms, which increases their polarity. Why this matters for pigmentation is because then the xanthophylls, given their polarity, they are better incorporated into the lipoproteins. So therefore, they have more efficient transportation and deposition into the egg yolk. Whereas beta carotene is more prone to metabolic conversion into vitamin A rather than the storage. So the more vitamin A, for example, that you will need that your animals will need, then the more conversion of the beta carotene, if it's present, the more conversion of it will go into the vitamin A. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much, Murtala. Then I think we could go for the second question. Can carotenoid utilization be manipulated to increase the proportion allocated to deposition or metabolism? I think again, Murtala.
I think, yeah, and I think this question is really more related as well to the first one. Yes, you can increase the level of the carotenoids to be manipulated for being used for other functions. The more you use, especially for the poultry, the more you will find in the eggs for sure. Because they are preferentially deposited into the eggs. But depending on the type of the carotenoid, as we have seen this similar example with the beta carotene, the more you bring in and the more that your animals might need for other functions, then the more it will be metabolized into those functions. So yes, you can manipulate that to first get the right level of the pigmentation that you want, to get the right level of the deposition that you want, but also to the nutritional status of your animal.
Very good. Then let's move to the other questions. By adding carotenoids to the breeder feeds, can we expect better hatchability for long-stored hatching eggs? I think it's the question for Take, I believe.
Yeah, thank you for the very good questions. Yes, if we add the carotenoids, especially the high antioxidant carotenoid like the xanthophyll, definitely we can see the positive performance in terms of the hatchability improvement. But before that, also the xanthophyll has the provitamin A effect. That is to influence to the fertility improvement. So that we can see the two positive benefits to the carotenoid. First is the fertility and then also the hatchability. Especially for the hatchability, we can expect more the antioxidant effect during the hatching stage. And then also even before the hatching stage, if you store the eggs before the hatcher, also we can see the better the survival rate for the embryo.
Thank you. I think there is another connected question regarding to the breeders. How will be the yolk sac absorption of their progeny during the early days of the chick life? I don't know who can handle this question.
I was trying to listen to the question. You said the absorption of the progeny, Emra?
Yeah, yolk sac absorption of their progeny.
Well, they okay. Go
Okay.
go ahead, Taki. I think this is much
Okay.
related to the maxi chip concept as well.
Yeah, because of for example, the contact something accumulation is very significant into the yolk sac as well, and then we had several studies about the the chick qualities, which means the 7 days, the mortality, the comparison, the control group, and then the high carotenoid group. And then as a result, the carotenoid group, the significant improve the, the less mortality compared to the control group. That shows the carotenoid accumulation also the very important to the early life stage of the chicks.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Taki. And yeah, a good question for Taki. What is the main difference between synthetic and natural sources of carotenoid? Competitors who are producing natural are claiming better product availability and stability.
Yeah, also the good questions. And in terms of the product availability, I'm not sure that what the exact mean, but if that means about the carotenoids, the availability, as the Murutara, and I also showed which carotenoid is better among some of the carotenoids. Always the several studies that shows the contact something and then ester. And then in terms of the difference between the synthetic and the natural source, for example, the carotenoids, the molecule itself. For example, even the contact something that we produce the synthetic method, but in the nature that we found the contact something in the mushroom and also the other vegetable sources. So the molecule itself, the 100% same. So that reason we cannot distinguish between the synthetic carotenoids and the natural carotenoids. And then synthetic carotenoids, we can guarantee the stability and then also the less contamination than the chemically extracted products. So in terms of the product performance is significant much better than the natural source.
Very good. Great answer, Taki. Thanks a lot. And I think we still have 2 minutes for the last question. So, how long the pigment remains stable once incorporated, and whether its stability can be influenced by environmental factors such as temperature or moisture, and if there is any effect of the other feed additives in terms of the pigment performance. I think.
Taki, you want to take this, or the stability depends on the quality first of the product that you have incorporated into your feed. So depending on the shelf life, but the storage conditions, longer prolonged storage conditions will definitely have an impact, not only on the carotenoid, but on all the nutrients that you will be supplementing into your diet. So better storage conditions, without humidity, lower, higher temperatures will all have impact. Yeah, for sure. So I don't know what the target of the question was. I mean, what was really the issue? Is it that the effect of all these storage conditions on the stability per se?
Yeah,
Or yeah,
actually, the carotenoid itself is a very sensitive from the heat and the moistures.
yeah,
For example, back to the previous question, the synthetic versus the chemically extracted, like the natural sources. The carotenoids itself, for example, lutein, zeaxanthin, antioxidant, avoester, those are the all same. All are the very sensitive from the heat and the moisture. So that the important is the how to protect the carotenoid molecule. So the bit rate coated is we can protect the carotenoid molecule from the heat and the moistures.
mm,
So the product formulation technology also the key to the support that those performance from the negative factors. I'm not sure that that is the
yeah.
Yeah.
right answer for that question.
Thank you so much, Take and Murtala. And with that, we are coming to the end of our webinar. And thank you so much for your presentations. I also want to thank to the all audience who is joining to us today. And I believe that we have enjoyed a lot. We have learned a lot of new things and a lot of interactions. And with that, I wish you a great day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.